Now, let's brainstorm. Think of logical and creative ways you can answer the question. Is there sufficient evidence in the text, or will you need to look further? If so, where will you look? We've already talked a little about in our discussion about going to the internet and Googling to find out about losing sight and losing hearing as the result of a fever. We definitely could do that. But let's take the evidence at hand for the moment. And I'm going to let you ask me questions. I'm the person you're interviewing. So you tell me, let's contribute here. The question was, when students studied the life of Helen Keller, they often ask, how was she able to speak the words wah-wah when she had the miracle of the pump with Annie Sullivan? Using the passage below, state your opinion as to how she was able to accomplish this. Be sure to cite any evidence you discover. All right, so what do you think? What's your opinion out there? Why was Helen able to speak wah-wah, 3-4 years later after this happened and make those connections? What do you think? If you were a student in your classroom, what would you say based on what we've read? How was Helen able to do this? Things you learned from the text that I read to you. All right, just enter your ideas there under questions. We know from the text. What do we know? We learned from that. Okay, you guys are like my students in my classes I've taught. Oh, there we go. From the support of her family. Okay, great. Okay, what else? Absolutely, that's right, Catherine. What else? What did you hear in the text? Specifically, right after her first birthday. Let's go back and pull that text up. If you remember, as the summer days faded into fall, the young Helen Keller mastered her first words, tea and wah-wah. All right, so we know we are right near her first birthday. So at 1 year old, she was already saying tea and wah-wah. She was speaking words at 1 year old. So let's put that as an information. At 1 year old, 1 year old, I suppose, she was speaking wah, wah as one of her first words. Okay, other ideas? Mimicking sounds, very good. Great. Any other ideas? Support of her family, 1 year old, she was speaking wah-wah as one of her first words. Mimicking sounds of others. Memory, very good, Deborah, memory. Okay, so we can already see that this detail is going to tie into this one as well, okay? All right, great. Anything else you'd like to add? Are there questions you would like to ask me? Keep in mind, this is a subject I know a lot about, so I'd be considered an expert, someone you've interviewed, and you could list me as a source. Is there anything you want to ask me, students, about Helen Keller and my knowledge of what happened with Anne Sullivan and all of these things you may be unsure about to help bring a lot of information to the table to write about? Do you have any questions for me that I can answer as your person you're interviewing? So a question that would pop up in this lesson would be, why do you think Helen said wah-wah at the pump? Why that? Oh, her environment was familiar to her. She was comfortable and safe. Okay, great. Put that one in there too, and I'll answer that other question. Her environment was familiar to her. She was comfortable and safe, so she was exploring sounds. That's great. All right, so a typical thing that comes up here with Anne Sullivan, we know that Anne Sullivan was teaching her the manual alphabet, teaching her how to spell the word water, okay? And they were doing this for some time. And they had gone to the water pump numerous times. And every time, Annie would take Helen's hand and she would put it under the water and she would spell water with the manual alphabet in her hand. Helen did not understand that that was an alphabet. She thought it was a game because her brothers, James and Simpson, had always played hand games with her like this. That was no big deal. She was very good at that. She did not understand that all these letters she was putting into Helen's hand meant a word. And one day it just clicked that that cool substance running across her hand was the same as what these symbols were going into her hand from Annie's fingers. And that's where Wawa happened. It's why that was the very first one. It could easily have been something else as well. Okay, I'm going to add this repetition. Oop, I misspelled repetition. Yep. Repetition. Practice. Exposure. Very good. Okay. So let's bring all this together. This is great brainstorming. Okay. So when you teach brainstorming, you're like, okay, do I have enough? We've asked me questions, and we know the miracle at the pump. It was an over and over process of teaching her the manual alphabet by letting water run over her hand and fingers. Annie spelled the word water into her palm over and over. Okay. Finally, it clicked with Helen like a light bulb. Ah, nice little simile. Like a light bulb going off. Okay, great. Now, this is great brainstorming. Am I going to use all of it? Maybe not. Let's pull this now into our plan. So I'm going to bring the plan up a little closer to our brainstorming so we can all see that a little better. So when I'm building a plan in Argumentative, these are some of the elements that I like to pull from. A topic sentence that's going to really answer the question. A defining detail. So I made up this concept. Okay, so after years and years of teaching elementary and junior high and high school students, I got so tired of them giving you this topic sentence that was pretty big picture, but they never went through the steps to define that and narrow that topic. So it got really kind of, big picture, but they just didn't understand to have more specific details and evidence. So I went through and did what was called a defining detail. Define, tell me exactly what you mean by that. And that helped a lot. Supporting details. Now I have 3 bullets here. It doesn't mean you have to have 3 supporting details. I'm putting that there just so we can put some ideas down with us. An example. Is there an example to pull from? Is there something from the interview with me or something from the text we can pull in to give an actual example of what we're talking about? Is that possible? Now, counter argument and rebuttal. So these 2 pieces right here, it depends on what you're writing. You can offer an opinion and you can be persuasive without using counter argument and rebuttal. But I put these 2 elements in here just as an option to see if we need them. So what is the counter argument? That's what the other side thinks. A lot of people believe Helen was born blind and deaf. A lot of people don't realize that that happened when she was 18 months old. Okay. The rebuttal is, however, that's incorrect. She went through a fever that took her blindness and her sight and hearing away. Okay. I might not need a counter argument for this particular response, but I always tell students, if you feel like what you're stating as an opinion is a minority, it's not a well-known fact or whatever, and there's lots of other opinion out there, you need to address that and say, well, everyone else or people think this in general, but here's why they're wrong. That's your rebuttal. However, it's really this, because by doing that, you are strengthening your own opinion, your own argument. So I always say, save the counter argument and rebuttal in case you need it to clarify and to bring more people over to your side. Now, I could say closing statement. I did that for years until I had a young student in 4th grade one year. He had this little I don't know, obsessive compulsive disorder thing about time. He would sit in the back of my class, and when it would get to be like 5 minutes before the bell would ring, he would start snapping his fingers, saying, 5 minutes, Mr. Butler, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. So it was humorous. You take it in stride. And he would keep saying, wrap it up, wrap it up. And one day, another fourth grader said, I like what he says, wrap it up. I like that better than closing statement, because that's what you're telling us to do. You want us to wrap up what we're talking about, and you might leave the reader thinking about something. If you tell me I'm closing it, then I feel like it's a closed door. There's nothing more to discuss. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's brilliance. So we really are in a closing statement. We are wrapping it up, then we're leaving it out there to let the reader really think about it and bring that. And I thought it was really brilliant. So I've just started calling it wrap up ever since. So topic sentence, I need to answer the question. Let's go back and look at our thing here again. How is she able to speak the words Wawa when she had the miracle at the pump with Annie Sullivan? Okay, I'm going to pull that in. And I'm not writing the sentence yet, but I need to answer the question, okay? So I'm going to say something on the lines of, from our brainstorming, I'm going to pull in here and say, it was through her memory, through memory. Memory is the big picture, isn't it? That's the big picture. Because when we come back to the plan here, the brainstorming, this is the specific of what happened, right? At 1 year old, she was speaking. I'm just going to copy that and pull that straight in to my defining detail here, because that's what happened. This is the big picture. This is specifically, that's the definition of what happened, isn't it? Okay. Now, so you have other great things from our brainstorming here. Her environment, repetition, all this is great. So let's pull in repetition, practice, and exposure. I'm going to pull that into a supporting detail. I'm going to pull in her environment and put that into a supporting detail. I think that's important. Okay, support of her family. Okay, because they were definitely supporting her. Okay, so what's the example? So here, I think this is actually the moment at the pump with Annie that I told you about in my interview, isn't it? That it was that cool substance running over her hand that it clicked. So let's pull that in. And this is really my example here. And of course, as I do this, remember, I'm not doing this word for word. This is kind of a long idea here, but I'm going to bring this in. It gives me kind of a start, okay? I don't think I need a counter argument or rebuttal for this. I don't think it's an appropriate couple of sentences or more that I need. I think I have what I need to answer the question and cite the evidence, okay? So I'm just going to take these out of my plan for the moment and then wrap it up. Now, typically, I let my students leave this blank because I tell them, don't go ahead and write your ending and be decisive with that. Write the paragraph first, read it back, and then decide what's the best way to end it. Am I going to end it with a quote? Am I going to end it with a statement? Am I going to end it with a question? How do I want to end it to make it the most effective use of the writing there? All right, now let's write the topic sentence. So remember, what was our title over here? Let's go back and pull that. So we have, let's go ahead and pull this over here and put this in our plan, because that was definitely a very important part of our answer, because we need to cite that evidence, okay? Let's put that down here with our plan and put that down here so we've got it to pull from. Okay, that's one of our sources. That was our source number 1. And then source number 2 is interview with Darren Butler, author and director of The Miracle Worker. Okay, so we have 2 sources to pull from to then write our paragraph. Okay, now I'm just going to drop this plan down into the same screen so that we all can be on the same page here and not have to go back and make you guys dizzy. Okay. All right, I'm going to make this a little smaller just for my purposes over here. I can make sure everything's fitting in that screen. Okay, and then we'll write. Okay, so I need to answer the question. How was she able to do this? I really do like to teach my students to go back and look at the question and how can you take the question and possibly turn it around and make it a statement. Okay, how was she able to speak the words Wawa, which is the miracle of the pump? Okay, well, who is the she? Okay, so when Helen Keller had the miracle at the pump with Anne Sullivan, it's a little too much. When Helen Keller had the miracle at the pump, she was able to speak the words Wawa because of her memory. Something along those lines, okay? All right, let's write that. All right, so I'm going to indent, and let's get that off of bold. Don't need that. When Helen Keller had the miracle at the pump, she was able to speak the words wah, wah, because of her memory of these words. Okay? Now, I like that okay. What I tell students is you have to get started somewhere. This may not be a perfect sentence. This may be just where we start. It's where we begin. We can go back and we can tweak it a little bit. Let's get the plan into the actual writing here. All right, so at 1 year old, at the age of 1, that at 1 year old doesn't sound very fluent, doesn't it? So at the age of 1, she was able to say the words, at the age of 1, Wawa was one of her first spoken words. How about that? At the age of 1, Wawa was one of her first spoken words. Okay, now the problem here is, look at our plan. We have nothing in here, boys and girls, about the fact that she became blind and deaf. So if you don't know who Helen Keller is, this is not going to make any sense. I already see a problem. So let's go back in here and add a supporting detail and put in a reference here to fever, blindness, and deafness. And through your interview, that's 18 months old when that happened, okay? That was part of the interview we did, okay? All right, so I have nothing that cites evidence here. When Helen Keller had the miracle of the pump, she was able to speak the words Wawa because of her memory of these words. At the age of 1, Wawa was one of her first spoken words, okay? I really want to tweak this a little bit right now because I want to make sure my fluency is good, okay? Right here I can say, according to Helen Keller, leader without sight or sound. And I'm going to delete that Wawa to the biography. Helen, that's stronger, much stronger. Okay, we'll go back and fix the other in a minute. Okay, I'm going to pull in now and say Helen lost her sight and hearing at 18 months due to a high fever. That's pretty good. I think that's not bad. That gets that in there. Okay, now let's come back and say several years later, because I'm telling you through the interview. So you could say in an interview with Darren Butler, the director of the Miracle Worker, he stated, let's say that, in an interview with Darren Butler, the director of the Miracle Worker at Ivy Green, he stated, and we can quote me, my quote would be this, he stated that several years passed were very frustrated and they sent for a teacher, and that would be Annie Sullivan. Okay? He went on to explain that Annie taught Helen the manual alphabet, but Helen didn't understand these motions or letters or words. Okay? So I'm pulling this in through repetition, practice, and exposure. Through repetition, let's spell that correctly, practice and exposure, Helen memorized the motions with no understanding. However, one day when Annie was pumping water over Helen's palm, it clicked for her. Like a light bulb going off in her mind, Helen understood that the cool substance running over her palm was the word from deep in her memory, and was a little hyphen there, an M dash there, and say Wawa. Okay, let's read this back. We're getting towards the end of our paragraph here, okay? When Helen Keller had the miracle of the pump, she was able to speak the words Wawa because of her memory of these words. Okay, great. According to the biography, Helen Keller, leader without sight or sound, Wawa was one of her first spoken words. Helen lost her sight and hearing at 18 months due to a high fever. In an interview with Darren Butler, the director of the Miracle Worker at Ivy Green, he stated several years passed. The Kellers were very frustrated and they sent for a teacher, Annie Sullivan. He went on to explain that Annie taught Helen the manual alphabet, but Helen didn't understand these motions were letters or words. Through repetition, practice, and exposure, Helen memorized the motions with no understanding. However, one day when Annie was pumping water over Helen's palm, it clicked for her. Like a light bulb going off in her mind, Helen understood that the cool substance running over her palm was the word from deep in her memory, Wawa. Okay. So then we can come back and we can say as a closing, as a wrap up and say, in my opinion, it was this memory that opened the world of language for Helen Keller. Not bad. Okay. So I've read it through. I'm okay with that. Now I need to revise. So I think overall we did a lot of revision in the writing. As my students get older, I tend to do more of that in the writing with them. Really good. We kind of challenge content. We write a little, we read a little back and so forth. And I would encourage that as well. Then we go back and think about editing for grammar, punctuation, and spelling. So I would literally go through every line and I would challenge and say, do I need these quotation marks? Why did I italicize Helen Keller, leader without sight or sound? I see a mistake. I didn't capitalize this S. Let's fix that, okay? Is that important there? Are these commas in the right place? Is the M dash appropriate? Yes, it's fine, okay? I have 2 M dashes. Is that using the M dash too much? Okay, I might come down here and say, well, no, maybe I need to get rid of it here. The cool substance running over her palm was the word her deep in her memory. We've already referred to it up here, was the word Wawa. And let's just kind of fix that and make that was the word, the words Wa, deep within her memory. Okay, all right. So that's the process of writing. And this is something that you say, okay, well, my gosh, my 3rd graders couldn't do that. No, they can't do that tomorrow. But what I discovered, friends, was that when I took this writing process of understanding, brainstorming, planning, writing, revising content, and editing for punctuation, grammar, and spelling, when I did that consistently over a period of time, and I'm talking about a month, 2 months, 3 months, and I was able to do that, I started to see this level of writing appear. And I mean from students that I never thought had the ability to do it. So it was pretty amazing how that happened. Now, what I'd like to encourage you to do, I'm going to go back up here to our little presentation here and come down here. I'd like to share a couple of things with you. Our next free webinar we're doing will be in January. So I hope that you will watch our Facebook page, which is Virtual Village Classroom, and watch your email for details about the subject of that webinar, how many we're going to be doing. We'd love to have you sign and join us again. Now, if you like what you've seen today, if you've enjoyed this webinar and you think, hey, that RIP strategy, this writing process, this would be really great for my students and for our school. If you're interested, you can contact us for a free informational webinar about subscribing to Weekly Writer. It's an incredible writing resource that's for teachers in kindergarten through 8th grade. And you use the product along with your students, and it provides some amazing job embedded PD for learning how to teach the craft of writing. And you can check us out at weeklywriter.com. You can go to weeklywriter.net as well. It's all the same place. Or if you're interested in getting a webinar going just to hear about this, you can email us at info@vvclassroom.com or reach out to us toll free 888-696-1119.